So, good morning. You might have never thought about it, but you and me, all of us, will be remembered in history books as responsible of an enormous social change. We will be mentioned as those who made a massive transition to computer and smartphone-based communication between individuals. We collectively decreased the time we spend interacting with each other in the way all our ancestors did, that is, face-to-face, and we put a digital interface between us, starting to communicate through it indirectly. And this has consequences. And I will tell you about these consequences from the perspective of our university Human-Computer Interaction Lab, which I founded 20 years ago to combine computer science and psychology to better understand this era in which we are living two parallel lives, one in the physical, the offline world, and one in the digital, the online world. It's like a sudden event in history duplicated everyone, creating a digital counterpart. It's the offline you and the online you. And also loneliness as a counterpart, digital loneliness, a term that evokes images of people living isolated and depressed in a desert of machines. But digital loneliness sounds also contradictory. How can it be possible to be lonely when we can be always connected to an unprecedented number of people? And if we read the newspapers, they have only simplistic answers. They tend to describe digital loneliness as an inevitable epidemic that spreads through the smartphone. So you did not know it, but you carry in your pockets a fomite. It's an inanimate object able to harbor pathogens of this new disease. But if we want to take an unbiased look at digital loneliness, this is the first trap in which we do not have to fall, equating digital loneliness with digital technology. I think that all of us had the experience of feeling lonely while being with friends in the physical world, maybe here with 1,000 people in this theater. And I think that many of us had the experience of feeling emotionally connected to someone online. Maybe even in these days, you came here from 20 different countries, you are far from home, but you can feel safe and get positive feelings by just exchanging a few text messages with some important to you back home. They are probably people you know in person, but it can happen also with people you have never met online. For example, a friend recently told me a small but beautiful story of strong digital connection. She had health issues that unfortunately made her bedridden for months, and she joined an internet chat channel in which she made purely digital friendships. And one night, it was the night of the lunar eclipse, she was feeling very lonely, and she turned to the online channel, and she and the other people online, they all looked outside the windows of their homes, and they all looked at the moon and described it to each other from different locations in the world. And she felt a very strong emotional connection with them, regardless of the many miles of physical separation. So, we should not look at technology itself. We should look at the moon that we can reach through technology, because while being online is being alone, because you are not physically together with someone else, that does not necessarily imply loneliness. So the question is, how can we use digital tools to fight loneliness instead of promoting it? The literature on negative effects of digital tools has focused a lot on daily usage time as a metric, probably because it's a metric that anyone can understand, and everyone, especially parents, will be more than happy to have a simple guideline that just says, don't exceed this number of minutes, and everything will be fine. Jean Twenge has published extensively on this topic. This is one of her papers published last year, and she finds an association between daily usage time and psychological well-being, a lower psychological well-being, including difficulty making friends. But other studies think differently. This has just appeared in Psychological Science Journal. It's from the University of Oxford, and the authors conclude that this negative association is so small that it does not deserve substantial scientific discussion, and compared to other teenagers, activity is minuscule. So what's going on here is probably that daily usage time is not the best metric to understand effects on well-being. There are more important metrics than how much time, and they are what for and how. What for? Are you using digital tools for relationship purposes or for something else? For example, if you spend all your free time binge watching Netflix, I bet you end up lonely. You simply don't have time for social connection. But let's say you are using digital tools for relationships, then the question is, how are you using them to interact effectively with others? So now in this talk, I will focus on the many strengths, but also the limits and the pitfalls of using digital tools to fight loneliness. Technology is dual. It can be used for good or for bad. It's the dualism of technology. So let's say someone came up with a study about the effects of having a car on your social life. I think that anyone here would say, well, it's not the car in itself, it's about how you use the car. You can use the car to reach out to people who are far from you. You can use the car to escape from people. You can use the car to run over people if you want. And it's the same with digital tools. Are social networks or instant messaging bad for us? It depends on how we use them. And compared with a car, they have many more features and options and subtleties. And so we should really not be shallow about how we use them. To begin understanding what happened when digital interfaces got in the way of human relationships, let's now mind travel for a moment to the 80s. Why the 80s? Because the digital revolution had not started yet. The 80s were the last decade in which no digital communication tool was available. But we could feel very well isolation and loneliness. So we are now in the 80s, and let's imagine we want to socialize with a person who does not know us. So what could we do? We could try to be in the same places at the same time. So physical proximity was required. But if that person didn't notice us, then we had to try to say hello, or we had to try to approach the person with a more or less intelligent opening phrase, hoping not to blush, hoping to be able to sneak away somehow if that person looked at us as if we were Martians, or if she laughed, or if she didn't even understand. So all face-to-face strategies. Well, to be precise, there was a primitive mediated technology. It was the landline phone. But the idea of having a perfect stranger calling us home and maybe having to talk with our relatives before was kind of creepy for both parties. And in the 90s, the SMS arrived on the phone, and it offered a radically new way of introducing ourselves to others. We could write a message on a digital interface, and we were relieved of all the emotional and cognitive load of the face-to-face interaction, and everything felt easier, felt lighter. Even the non-response, even the wound of no, the wound of rejection felt lighter compared to face-to-face interaction and to landline phone interaction. So why does texting feels easier and lighter? Well, first, because of reduced social cues. When we communicate, when we speak face-to-face, we don't just choose words, we exchange information through several nonverbal channels. We put a personal space between us and the other. It can be measured in meters or centimeters, and we can even reduce to zero this space, and touch, which produces oxytocin and our mood improves. We seek the eyes of others, and we can grasp many things if they are interested, if they are bored, if they are embarrassed, if they are elusive, if they are hiding something, and many other things. Eyes are called windows to the soul for good reasons. Then our postures communicate our mood, and we have a rich body language. We raise our shoulders, we shake our head, we grab parts of our body, we draw ideas in the air, we emphasize the emotional content of our sentences, and then the voice. We can utter the same sentence in a myriad of ways, changing the volume, the pitch, the intonation, the rhythm, the pauses, their length and frequency. And we can even produce sounds that are not words. We can say, ha, with precise meanings, understood, I am surprised, I am perplexed. And when we switch to digital textual communication, like the SMS or more recently instant messaging, all these channels are not available. And it's a loss because our brains are tuned by tens of thousands of years of evolution and practice to detect and appreciate these cues. So something is lost, but something else is gained in the initial phase of contact with someone unknown, because we don't have to control, if we are texting, we do not have to control all these channels, and we do not receive anything on these channels that need to be interpreted, so we can focus on just one thing, the words, what we want to say, and everything feels lighter. And moreover, the communication can be asynchronous. Neither you nor the other person need to answer immediately. So we have time to think and reflect about what we want to say. And we feel less pressured, we feel calmer, more in control. And this can encourage even the shyest person to make the first move. Not just for friendship, think also about helplines. How it is easier and lighter for someone who seeks help to make the first move through digital communication. And after the SMS, over the years, many other tools arrived. We have forums, we have blogs, we have instant messaging, we have video calls, we have social networks, 3D online words. Social networks especially introduced new features that are even lighter than the SMS. You don't need anymore to text someone to start a conversation. Maybe you just write something on your page, something that is of interest to you, and someone else reads it and is interested too, and that person sends you a message. And there are even lighter ways to move from online meetings to offline meetings. Take, for example, the Facebook status message. Some people use it creatively to promote face-to-face meetings. So they might write, do you want to eat pizza in Udine on Friday? Write me in private. Or, I'm going to this concert tonight. Does someone need a ride? And there are even more subtle messages. You might have wondered why some people write, I'm here, I'm there, I'm in the Udine to Venice train, I am the coffee break at the conference. Well, among other things, this can promote face-to-face meetings with people in your social network that might happen to be in the same place. So this is interesting. It's the dualism of technology again. When a digital tool offers us a new feature, we can use our intelligence to adapt and reinvent that feature for our own good. But the dualism of technology means also that some people positively adapt and some people maladapt. And an example of maladaptation in the status message is when you use it to share every single uninteresting thing that happened during all your day, as if you were a rock star or a fashion supermodel, and you expect everyone to like it. So this is maladaptation. This is fueling narcissism. Portuguese computer scientist and artist created this pair of shoes that can go automatically online and share what your feet are doing. So I'm taking a step with my left foot, I'm taking a step with my right foot, and so on. It's a provocation that must make us think about the healthy use of digital tools, the thin line between sensitive and senseless. But let's go back to positive use. So we have seen that digital tools make it easier to create new contacts, new friendships. But that is just the first step, because just increasing your number of digital contacts, having 1,000 friends on your page, is not likely to make you less lonely, because we human beings look for meaning too. So an essential question, is it possible to feel a sense of intimacy online? And a first answer arrives from where you least expected, World of Warcraft. It's one of the most popular multiplayer video game online. In a pioneering paper, a group at Indiana University interviewed players of the game, and they found out that many stories of users who started to talk about the game in the game chat, discussing about playing the game. And these discussions gradually moved to completely different subjects, like abuse suffered in childhood, or personal problems, or existential problems. And some users reported to be able to open up much more in the game chat than in the physical world. Something that triggers this opening up is often a disclosure made by one of the two persons, which prompts the other person to do the same. It's the rule of reciprocity. It's well known in social psychology. It's a rule that says that we have to try to repay in kind what the other provides us. And we all follow it, sometimes unconsciously, sometimes consciously. And in the game chat, the disclosure, someone that allows you to see his or her vulnerability, is a gift. It's a symbolic gift. And we humans reciprocate gifts. In other stories, the gift was a digital game item. In one story, a user told about how he was emotionally impressed to receive, on the date of his birthday, a digital game item from another user who spent a considerable amount of time to create that item. It's the rule of reciprocity again. We receive this digital gift, we feel grateful, and we become closer to the other person. So acts of digital kindness that promote mutual kindness. But think about how other people behave when they are protected by a digital interface. They use it to attack, to harass, to insult, to perform acts of digital aggression and hatred. And unfortunately, the rule of reciprocity works also in this case. We should try to repay in kind what the other provides us. So digital hatred evokes more digital hatred, retaliation, and creates separation, and creates more social isolation. So we need acts of digital kindness. And if they are possible in World of Warcraft, they are possible with any digital tool. Another interesting thing that comes up from these stories is that when the digital relationship grows, users feel the need to change tools. Maybe they move from the game chat to social networks. And this helps explain why from the oldest to the newest digital tool, they all coexist today. We use them all. It's an ecosystem of different software layers which provide us different levels of perceived closeness. So we wear the layer that we feel most appropriate to the context and to the relationship based on how much we want to increase or decrease the perceived distance. It's a personal digital space. Someone calls it social buffer. So we have talked about lightness before, and now we have met a new factor. It's warmth. There are warmer and colder digital tools. It comes up also from other kinds of research. Take, for example, research about relationship in the physical world that suddenly end and are moved to the online world because the friends were physically separated. One had to move to a different city. And what came up from research is that email, a colder tool, is not effective for relationship growth, but it is essential for continuity. It's like sending paper greetings card was in the previous century. On the contrary, tools that include voice, you can hear the other, warmer tools, prove to be very powerful for relationship growth, and people associate an increase in audio communication with closer emotional contact and more intimacy. So it can happen to all of us. Maybe we start talking with someone unknown by email, then we move to instant messaging, then we move to social networks, then we start to use audio, then we start to use video calls, and finally we meet face-to-face, experiencing all the power of the nonverbal channels I've mentioned before. So we should look at digital tools as a bridge to a destination. And the destination is multimodal relationships. That is, relationships that start in the physical world and then are enhanced by adding digital tools, and relationships that start in the digital world but that can transition also into the physical world. So let's say we have taken this path to multimodal relationships. What can go wrong? What can derail us from the path? Well, there are 9 main obstacles we have to jump over. I've already mentioned 2, digital narcissism and digital hatred, but let's see the other ones. Retreat into the digital. We may find digital communication so convenient, so easy, that we start to move all our remaining face-to-face interaction into the digital world. But this leads to the disintegration of our offline relationships, creating more loneliness. Or we can start using digital tools in a mechanical way, following the patterns programmed by the tool creators, the tool designers. Let's say, how many likes have we received today? Let's check. Not many. So let's post something to increase my likes. It doesn't matter if I'm not interested in it or if it does not authentically reflect me. Just do it. There is a fMRI, a neuroimaging study just published a few years ago on psychological science, and they found that when we receive a like on a social network, it activates the reward circuits of our brain. It's like eating chocolate. So if we let us be mindlessly driven by these programmed patterns, we end up like mice in a Skinner box. Our behaviors are conditioned by outside through sugar in the digital form of likes. Or we may start to use digital tools in a passive way. It's called lurking. It means we watch other people's lives. We browse through their profiles, looking at the pictures of their vacations and things like that. And there are many studies showing that this creates feelings of envy, of resentment, of jealousy, and guess what? Loneliness. Instagram requires particular attention because it's based primarily on images and videos, which facilitate passive use. Moreover, its users tend to represent themselves in unrealistic ways, sharing only the coolest and the strangest events in their lives. While in other networks, for example, Facebook, people tend to be more willing to share also the ordinary or the negative events. And then there is quantity of data. To be aware of our behaviors, we need attention. In a digital world that ironically is so full of stimuli that can overload us, that can greatly exceed, if not used correctly, our capacity, our attentional capacity. So with dried up cognitive resources, our behavior becomes automatic. We switch on the automatic pilot. So maybe we take into consideration only a few tiny bits of information because they attracted more attention, and then we take decisions based on a poor judgment of the situation. It's called tunnel vision. And there's speed. Computers are very fast. They work at inhuman speed. And we react often by raising our expectations about ourselves and others. So it can be great to be able to send a message with text and images and videos and share it with anyone in seconds. But be aware that to create a meaningful message, the reflection and the focus part of the work still requires the same time it required in the previous centuries. In high-frequency stock market, they speak about a race to zero. It means that the different digital tools fight with each other to buy or sell stock in a time that must be as close as possible to zero. But machine speed, inhuman speed, has nothing to do with friendship. A race to zero in friendship is a race to less meaningful friendship, is a race to a virtual friendship. And I use the term virtual in its proper sense, something that only appears as a friendship, but a friendship is no more. Multitasking. Computers are very good at doing several things in parallel. We humans don't. But when we open a window and we are chatting with someone, we get tempted by the computer to open another window and doing something else in parallel. And this leads us to a state of divided attention. And divided attention decreases the quality of what we do. So if we really care about someone, we should give that person our undivided attention. The undivided attention they deserve and we deserve. And there is something we can call this embodiment. Those of us who use computers or smartphones for several hours per day might feel this. You might suddenly notice that you are holding your breath, or you are in apnea, or you're shortening your breath. You might feel that you don't have a body anymore. You might suddenly notice that all your muscles are contracted since hours and you believe they were relaxed. So it's a sort of disconnection from the body. And disconnection from the body means disconnection from emotions. And disconnection from emotions, how can you feel others? How can you feel empathy? So we really need to stop sometimes and ask ourselves, what am I doing? No, really, what am I doing? To regain our attention, to become more aware of what we do, several authors recommend attentional retraining to improve our self-regulation abilities. In neuroscience terms, it means improving our executive control. And I point here because it's associated with the prefrontal cortex. And as a great social neuroscientist, John Cacioppo, pointed out, if you improve your executive control, you become also more able to deal with loneliness in the digital and in the physical world. One of the most popular approaches to improve attention is mindfulness. Here you have the well-known cover of Time magazine. So if you are caught in the techno-stress vortex, just stop for a moment, breathe, feel your emotions, feel your body. Take a step aside from the digital hurricane and watch yourself from outside. So what is important and what is not important? Does it work? Well, yes, there are many studies about it, but I'll show you just one we did in our laboratory to study specifically the physiological effects on the body of digital stimuli in the form of scary virtual reality experiences before and after an 8 weeks mindfulness course. And it turned out that those who retrained their attention became less vulnerable to the digital bombardment, while the control group, they did nothing and they remained vulnerable. And in the last 5 years, we created a number of apps to bring mindfulness exercises into the digital world. This was the first in 2014, Ion Mindfulness. It's about observing our own thoughts. Then this more recently, Emo Paint, Paint Your Emotion, about emotional awareness and body awareness. And this last year, Cosmic Infinite Relax, it was about breath awareness. And incidentally, this is another example of the dualism of technology. The same device that can damage your attention can be used to promote it. Okay, and the dualism of technology requires us to take a stand. Where do we want to stand? I suggest we should commit to take the path from digital loneliness to multimodal relationship and commit to overcome all the obstacles. Well, I've mentioned the 9 obstacles, but now let's try to recap in a very different way, together with Nick Zangus, from game designer in our lab. We created something special for you. It's a recap in a video game format. So this is your character, this is us, and as you can see, our character is very sad. He's very sad because of digital loneliness. So should we do something for him? Should we help him? Yes? Okay, so let's play, but I'm not sure if you will made it. Let's cross our fingers and cheer for it. Go! So digital narcissism, jump. Digital hatred, jump. Retreat into the digital, avoid. Program patterns, jump. Lurking, smash. Information overload, jump. Inhuman speed, crouch. Multitasking, smash. Disembodiment, crouch. And we made it, we won. We reached meaningful relationships. Okay, so it's not only a game. We can all overcome these obstacles. We can use digital tools as a bridge to find each other through all the stages of our lives and rediscover the wonder of social connection. Thank you.